Here are my top 5 ESL small talk activities. Number 1 is 3 in a row. So I would put students into pairs and then each pair matches up with another pair. So each group would have 4 students, 2 teams of 2. And then I would have a grid, a 5x5 grid, and I would write a bunch of topics on the board that people would kind of do for small talk. So like maybe getting to work, hobbies, weather, sports, weekend plans, all those things, kind of the latest TV shows, whatever. And then students would do paper, rock, scissors, and the winning team, they get to choose the first square. So maybe they would choose like hobbies. The other team would have their cell phone and they would do a timer for 1 minute. And the team that chose that hobbies square, their challenge is to talk about hobbies for 1 minute without stopping. If they're successful, they get to put an X on that square or an O, whatever that is. One team would be X, one team would be O. And the goal is to get 3 in a row. So after they're done, they put their X on there and then the other team would choose a square and they have to talk for 1 minute. All right, the second small talk activity is a cocktail party. So I try to replicate real life as much as possible in my classroom. So to kind of warm this activity up, I would get students to shout out some topics that people might talk about at a party. So maybe they would talk about their kids, they would talk about their weekends, maybe their upcoming holidays. Maybe they complain about the weather, they talk about the sports team, and then I would also get students to shout out some things that you shouldn't talk about. So for example, asking someone how old they are, talking about politics, religion, kind of like controversial like things like maybe like abortion, I don't know, whatever. You just want to avoid those controversial topics. So that's fresh in students' minds. And then I get students to kind of give me some examples of ways they would start a conversation. So they would shout out some examples, like for example, maybe do you have any weekend plans or do you have any holidays coming up, whatever. So that's also fresh in students' mind. And then I say, okay, we're going to practice. So all the students will stand up and then they can just mingle around the classroom, having little small talk conversations with everybody. And so I would also tell students that the goal is not to be stuck talking to someone for the entire 10 minutes or 15 minutes, however long we do this activity, but the goal is to mingle and kind of talk to everybody. So I'd also talk about ways to politely end a conversation. So I would say I encourage students to maybe talk to someone for maybe 2 minutes and then or 3 minutes and then move on and talk to someone else. So if I notice students are just stuck talking to the same person, I would just kind of tap them on their shoulder and say, okay, go talk to someone else now, and kind of just give them a gentle reminder about that. All right, the third activity is the expert. So everyone likes talking about things that they know a lot about. So I get students on a piece of paper to write down 3 things that they are very knowledgeable in. So maybe it's like cooking Korean food, playing softball, and pro tennis, something like that, watching pro tennis. And then I get them to choose maybe the 1 or 2 topics that they think other people might be most interested in. After that, I put students into pairs and they would have their little paper with the 2 maybe topics that they think other people are most interested in circled. And then I get those 2 students to have a conversation for 4 or 5 minutes about the topics on their piece of paper. Once they're done that, I get them to switch and then they can talk to someone else. So this is a very nice introductory activity. The fourth small talk activity is telling a story. So people at parties or at work, whatever, love to tell stories. And it's a kind of a nice way to get to know someone and to share your personality. So I have a little story prompt. So for example, maybe your most embarrassing moment or a funny story from when you were in middle school or high school, something from when you were growing up, maybe your favorite holiday, whatever that is. And then I give students a little bit of time to prepare their story. So I don't want them to write sentence by sentence, but they can write a few little notes about the points that they're going to cover. Then I put students into groups of 4 and they would tell their story to the group. And so the first person is telling their story, the other 3 people are listening. And then at the end, those other 3 people have to ask a follow-up question. And then of course the person has to answer. Then the second person tells their story and then so on it goes. And the 5th small talk activity is to give students some conversation starters. So if you tell students, okay, do small talk with your partner for 5 minutes, I mean, you're probably going to have a lot of silence in your class because there just isn't really enough information or structure to that class. Instead, I like to give students some conversation starters. I encourage like kind of free-flowing conversation, follow-up questions, but then they also have those conversation starters if they get stuck. So I would have, for example, like upcoming holiday plans, or what did you do last weekend? What's your plan for tonight? What do you think about the weather? Do you follow the Edmonton Oilers or whoever your local sports team is? And that kind of thing. So that is it for my small talk activities for your ESL classroom. If you like these ideas, please be sure to check out my book, 101 ESL Activities. I'll put the link up there, and please hit like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.